Okay, Jason, I last interviewed you on Air FM over 3 years ago, and in that interview we spoke about your call for Colin Barracks in Mullingar to be converted to a museum and cultural quarter. I don't know if there's any news specifically about Colin Barracks in this regard, Jason, but I read the article in Westmeath Topic a few days ago about the building on Church Avenue in Mullingar. Can you fill our listeners, many of whom will be from Dublin, in on what this story is regarding the building on Church Avenue, Jason?
Yes, of course I can, Darren. I suppose to get to the first point of your question, you were asking there about Colin Barracks and what's the situation there. I suppose the idea for a museum, a cultural quarter, and even a College for the Red, etc., all that type of stuff has been put on hold because of course, Colin Barracks Mullingar is now an IPAS centre and also home for Ukrainian refugees. But there is a call by Westmeath County Council, the councillors down there, to do something going forward with the barracks and to transition it from an IPAS centre to actually the hub that we spoke about 3 years ago. But look, that'll probably take time. Getting to the second part,
that'd be fantastic, wouldn't it?
It absolutely would, because as I've always said, Colin Barracks is more than just a barracks. It's not just like a new camp that was built a few years ago. This is a historic site itself, and it's actually constructed on a historic site, if that makes sense, because it was constructed first in 1807 during the Napoleonic Wars to defend Ireland from a French invasion. Of course, this would have been only about 8-9 years after the 1798 rebellion, when there was real fear of the French invasion, when they came as far as almost Mullingar, the French, with United Irishmen. So, of course, the British were very much on tenterhooks at this stage. And, of course, the site itself would have been of archaeological importance. But anyway, I suppose moving forward from that, it would be great. It'd be great. We need to have something done with Colin Barracks, and sooner rather than later, because it is a historical site. It's not just one of these buildings that was built during the Celtic Tiger, and it's a historical site, and But anyway, getting to the second part of your question there about Church Avenue, I suppose the facility in Church Avenue, it's a fine 3-storey building. I don't know if you've seen photos of it, Darren, but it's an unbelievable site. Now, about a number of years ago, again, I've been calling for museums, if not at Colin Barracks, then definitely in the town centre. And I suppose anyone with a link to a Westmeath County Council said, no, there's nothing there. And even when some councillors have asked, I know Councillor Emily Wallace has raised the issue, and she was told herself, in fairness to her, that there was no facility suitable for a museum in Mullingar. And Ken Lynn has been fighting that corner as well. In fairness to Ken Lynn, Councillor Wallace, and even Councillor Bill Collentine and Councillor Mick Dollard, who is mayor of the town, has been very strong in his support for a museum. So there is support among some of the councillors there within Westmeath County Council for this. But it wasn't until last week when Councillor Dollard asked a question about this building in Castle Street, and then it became known that this building, that the tax office was in it, it's a government building, so there was the tax office in it, there was a court service was in it, the library was in it, and then, of course, when the Westmeath County Council built their new headquarters, they vacated it, the library vacated it, and then, of course, the court services vacated it, then when Mullingar Courthouse was done up. But what we didn't realise, and definitely what I didn't realise, was that the actual building was owned by Westmeath County Council. And I would have been led to believe that it was a private landlord owned it, and that actually it was being leased from a private landlord. But last week, in fairness to Councillor McDollard, in a question he posed, it came out that not only was it owned by Westmeath County Council, but Westmeath County Council are planning to sell the building. So, what's going on here, guys? We're told that we kind of a cultural quarter, we kind of a museum in Mullingar, and here's a building who's been left empty for the past 5-6 years. And yet, at the same time, the rates for business people in Mullingar and Westmeath has went up through the roof. And so has the local property tax for those of us that have bought our homes in Mullingar. That was a big increase as well. After the local elections, they increased the local property tax in Mullingar and Westmeath. And yet, out of our money that we're paying for, this building lies empty, and they're telling us that there's no room for a museum or a heritage centre. So yes, it is quite annoying, to be honest. And plus, also the other thing, when we talk about cultural quarter, when we talk about heritage in Mullingar, and I suppose it all came home to me there about a couple of weeks ago. I was out there with Mullingar Tidy Towns, who does great work in Mullingar there, with Councillor Bill Collentine as chairman. And, we were doing a bit of a sweep of the town with the local business community and keeping Dominic Street tidy. And, we had the local business there, whatever. And we went up then to Kieran Clark's pub afterwards for a coffee. and literally a quick coffee before we went off because we were all driving afterwards. And Kieran came out and we were chatting away to Kieran. And next thing, these young French girls come in where a coach had stopped in the town. They went to the mural of Niall Horan there, which is beside the post office in Mullingar, and looked around to see could they find that and belonged to Niall Horan. Like, these were his fans. And nowhere to go. So next, someone had told him, go to Clark's Bar. That's where him and Lewis Capaldi filmed a little bit of a documentary during the Fleadh. So next, these French girls walk in, look around. And so Karen said, oh, there you go. So I went off with the young girls and showing them around and talking as a historian and that. And I went back to my table again. And next, Americans arrived in, looking for, like, for Niall Horan and, and looking where he sat. And, they were looking for stuff. And Kieran was telling me that this happens several times a day. People from all over the world arrive in Mullingar expecting there to be something there, and they find that there's nothing there. And in fairness to Kieran, and in fairness to the Greville Arms Hotel, two business retails in Mullingar, and only for them there'd be nothing. And in fairness, let's be totally honest, it's not up to private business. But in fairness to them, the two guys are promoting the owners of the Greville Arms, and in fairness to Karen Clark. But I think Westmeath County Council can do better here. I mean, we've a town that, it's steeped in the arts and music. I mean, come on. I mean, we have Joe Dolan, let's be honest, put Mullingar on the map originally. Niall Horan, who is an absolute superstar, and I didn't even realise how big a star Niall was until I was in New York before Christmas. And that was just amazing when people, how he felt over there in America. So, look, it just makes sense to have it. And then we've great writers from Mullingar, like Josephine Hart was a great author. We've loads of authors here, Patricia Gibney, and even James Joyce spent time in Mullingar and set part of Ulysses in Mullingar. Like, you know what I mean? So that's just the arts. Then we've actresses and actors from Mullingar. I mean, it's just Niamh Algar there, Tina Callagher, to name but a few, and there's more, like the arts, Kyoto's Kyoto Rieran was founded in Mullingar, the first ever Fleadh was founded in Mullingar, held in Mullingar. It's just like the musical history and arts history of Mullingar alone. I mean, you could just, if another town had this, let's be honest, if let's say Athlone had this, if they'd only 1/4 of we have in the town related to the arts and to music, they'd be out of traps long ago with a museum for it and a heritage centre.
I didn't know until I heard you there a minute ago saying I didn't know that Niall Horan was that big. He is in America, is he?
He's absolutely huge. I mean, I suppose as a Mullingar person, we all know he's famous and he's a superstar. But I'm in Broadway in New York. I'm at a show. I'm sitting down in the seats in a show on Broadway in New York. I mean, you don't get a bigger place than that. And I just happened to talk to a few Americans beside me, and they went, oh, hi, how are you? And I was chatting away, and I said, oh, where are you from? I said, Ireland. And they got excited, oh, you're a real Irishman, because, well, as one person, I meet Irish Americans, but never met an Irishman before, which is unusual considering New York is full of Irish. But we got chatting, and they asked me where I was from. Are you from Dublin? That's the first thing they ask you. No, I'm not from Dublin. Are you from Galway? No, I'm not from Galway. Are you from Cork? No. Kerry? No. So then I said, I'm from Mullingar, and she looked at me blankly. They looked, no, never heard of Mullingar. And I started thinking, I said, oh yeah, I said, hang on, says I, yes, says I, there's a young lad from Mullingar, says I know his dad, says I remember him as a kid myself, because I would know Niall Horan's dad, I mean, we're from Mullingar, we'd be original Mullingar people. I would have worked with his dad years ago before I went into teaching. And I actually said, yes, there's a young lad from Mullingar, he was in a band called One Direction, you ever heard him say? Yeah. Say, yes, the Irish guy, Niall Horan, do you know him? Well, next she let screech. You know Niall Horan and you know his family. I said, of course I do. I said, sure. They're good Mullingar people. They're lovely people. And they were amazed. And then talk with, he knows Niall Horan. And this is in Broadway in New York. So this is how big the guy is. I mean, he's a superstar.
I remember I was getting the train, this must be maybe 10 years ago, I was getting the train, I think I was going from Castlereagh to Dublin, and there was a One Direction concert on, and the only reason I knew there was, actually I heard there was one, but the only reason I knew is that I saw a girl on the train, and she was wearing a One Direction t-shirt, so I assumed she was going to the concert, but she only looked about 6 years old. She was kind of cute because she was so young. I know she probably idolised all the members, but that was actually maybe 10 years ago. So I'd say a lot of his supporters are older, or his fans are older now, aren't they? Are they?
They are older and they're young as well, because in New York, what I found out as well is that Niall is on The Voice of America, so he's a judge on The Voice in America, and so this keeps his profile there. But to be honest, and I'm not just saying around, he actually is a genuine nice young lad. He really is they're a lovely family. He's a lovely person, and you know, when you see kids inspired by a genuine, decent guy like him, sure, it's not brilliant, But
and having him, like, he's from Mullingar, and I assume he still spends time in Mullingar occasionally, like, to have him as a kind of like international musician, singer, like, he could do wonders for the town, couldn't he?
But sure, that's it. He is the lad he's doing wonders as it is. I mean, people visiting the town. I mean, all we need to do in Mullingar, the elected representatives there, and our own Westmeath County Council executive, and and everyone pulled together. I mean, and harness this and promote the town. And I mean, look, it makes sense. I mean, like, I'm a historian. I mean, if I can see it, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not something like that. I'm a historian. And if I can see how this is beneficial to tourism, then I'm sure others can as well. And that's just the music and the arts. I mean, of course, we have the military history of Mullingar as well. We also have the transport history of Mullingar. We also have the historical epochs of Mullingar as originathlly a Gaelic Irish settlement, and then it became an Anglo-Norman town with the Anglo-Normans arrived, and then we had King Billy's army after the Battle of the Boyne settled in Mullingar on the way to the siege of Athlone. We had, the famine epoch. We've a lot of history in the town, as well as the music and the arts. So, when you're talking about a museum, I'm not talking about a little room with a few artefacts and a couple of maybe elderly volunteers or any volunteers just going, I look at this and it's not nice. You're talking about something different. And I mean, look, if the money's there, and there is money there that can be drawn down, by the government, by the local authority, by Fáilte Ireland, you could be a miniature version of Epic Museum, that type of thing.
So you could kind of be, it could kind of be like an interpretative centre as well.
Now you have it. An interpretive centre, absolutely, that type of thing. And I mean, we have a wonderful arts centre in Mullingar with fine young actors and actresses up and coming who could act the parts, and these sort of 3D visuals. Like it'd be an experience. That would be my vision. But also, this building could be used then for the arts as well. I mean, we have young writers here in town. We've very creative people in Mullingar. It's a very creative town. And as people kind of gathered. So it'd be like a zone for young writers to go in, young musicians there to get their talents flow, that sort of thing. And that's how I would view that building, to be honest with you.
Okay, so for the benefit of any of our listeners who might not know what this building looks like, I've never been inside it, but I saw photos of it on Westmeath Topic, and it looks, I don't know if you've been inside it, but from the outside it looks like a lovely building, doesn't it?
It's a fantastic building, and I was inside it actually when it was a library. It's a very spacious building inside. I mean, you have the ground floor, you have whatever, and look, I'm sure it's been idle at this stage, and plus planning laws have changed ever so slightly in the length it's been actually left vacant, that maybe there'll be a few adjustments maybe needed, maybe a lift or maybe stuff like that in it, but that's not beyond the bounds of possibility. I mean, there's money there that can be drawn down, to do this, and I mean, there's people who are well able to do this in local government who know exactly what I'm talking about here, But as I said, this is a good news story. This is not a blame game. This is not you're blaming everyone. It's about what I'm calling for as a historian is everyone pulling together. Not people blaming this one and blaming that one. And for our local county councillors, and an awful lot of them have come on board on this, is everyone now to pull together. Let's pull together for the good of Mullingar and let's get this going. And that's what I'm calling for.
And Jason, will it take a motion at Westmeath County Council to make sure this happens, or what will it take, Jason, for the decision to be made,
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think what made is at the moment, I mean, I had an online petition there going, and I mean that's one part. That's only a tiny aspect of it. But it's actually the push there. As I said, the Westmeath Topic have been very good there in their support on this. And credit to the Westmeath Topic, and in fairness, of course, the Westmeath Examiner, but the Westmeath Topic have been excellent in their support in this. But what you'd be looking for here is that the first outcome here would be a pause or even a stop on the sale of that building. Because I don't think this would be very good if We call for it to be halted. Let's have a discussion. Let's have a conversation about the possibilities for that building. And in the meantime, the council sell it. I think that would be a very negative reflection, to be honest. So I think the first thing is halt the sale, or halt even any sort of sale for that building, and take it off the market. That's what I want. And then let's all sit around like adults and let's have a conversation here and see what the possibilities are. And as I said, there's people well able to do that. And I know, speaking to some of the county councillors, they're up for this. They're up for this job.
Okay, Jason, I don't know who the mayor or Cahirlock, I don't know what term you use for Westmeath County Council is. I don't know who the CEO of the council is.
The Councillor Gaffney is the new mayor of the Kinnegad Mullingar borough. He just elected there last week. I'm not sure the Cahirlock at the moment. That election has just happened. Yes, I'm not sure of Westmeath County Council, but look, it's this is something that can happen.